Rolex is one of the most recognized luxury brands in the world, worth about $8.3 billion. It all started with an orphan teenager whose inheritance was stolen away from him. He didn't give up though. Instead, he followed his passion. And guess what? His little business idea would change the watch industry forever and create a $1 billion empire. So, how did this kid with no family or money make the most famous watch brand ever? Well, let's dive in. Buckle up, it's showtime. Welcome to Nitzero Club, the place where impactful people come to get inspired. Hans Wulfdorf was born in Germany in 1881. He had a happy childhood with his parents, Anna and Jonna, who had a business to sell iron goods. But when he was 12, both his mom and dad passed away suddenly, and he became an orphan. His uncle took care of him and sent him to a boarding school in Bavaria, Germany. At first, Hans was very depressed, but he decided to focus on school to escape his sadness. During this time, he became a friend of a Swiss boy who told him stories about his birthplace, La Chaux-de-Fonds, Switzerland's watchmaking city, which fascinated him. When Hans was 19, he left the German boarding school and went to Geneva. There, he got a job at an international pearl exporting company. He noticed they made a lot of money without creating anything, so he invested time and effort to learn their business secrets. One day, his Swiss friend offered him a job at Kuehne a famous high-quality watchmaking company in La Chaux-de-Fonds, the place he always wanted to visit. Even though his current job paid well, Hans' curiosity for the place and the business around watches was too strong to resist. So in 1900, he moved to La Chaux-de-Fonds to work for Kuehne. He got a job as an English correspondent and a clerk who had to win hundreds of pocket watches every day and make sure they were accurate. He developed a deep appreciation for the craft and became obsessed with the idea of creating perfect watches. Then, in 1903, Hans moved to London to work for another high-quality watch company. Now, his job was to make more people buy these watches. After 2 years, he started thinking about making his own watch business. He learned everything he could about the business, and this gave him a good understanding of what made one watch brand stand out from another, and also how crucial marketing was to a brand's success. Even though he enjoyed his job, Hans had big dreams. In 1905, when he was 24 years old, he decided to start his own watch company. He didn't have a lot of money, so his brother-in-law, Alfred Davis, helped him with money and became his co-founder. They started a company called Wulfdorf and Davis Limited, which later became Rolex. But here's the thing. In those days, people didn't really wear wristwatches like we do today. They thought wristwatches were too small and delicate and were not well precise at timing. Instead, pocket watches were strongly preferred. Hans thought differently. He believed wristwatches were more convenient and elegant. He also predicted that sooner or later they were going to be the new norm for everybody. Hans really wanted to make a perfect wristwatch. Everyone thought he was a bit crazy, and even his business partner wasn't sure about this idea. But Hans met with many expert watchmakers to learn everything from each of them. He kept making better and better wristwatches, and he wanted to change the name of his company to something high class, catchy, and easy to say, no matter the language. He spent a lot of time combining 5 letters from the alphabet until he came up with Rolex. He knew it was perfect, so he registered the Rolex name as a trademark for Wulfdorf and Davis Limited in 1908. Over the years, Rolex became famous for its high-quality wristwatches, and many rich people liked them. To increase their credibility, Rolex also won the first ever wristwatch chronometer rating from Switzerland, followed by a Class A certificate of precision from London's Kew Observatory, which no other watch of that kind had won before. But it's not only sunshine and rainbows. In 1914, the First World War started. Not only that, but the British government put a 33% tax on luxury goods like watches. So to avoid any conflict and to get some tax benefits, Hans, in a smart move, decided to move Rolex HQ from England to Switzerland, which was neutral during the war. During the war, many watch companies went out of business, but not Rolex. Their wristwatches became popular with the military because they were reliable and easy to use compared to pocket watches. In 1926, Rolex changed the watch world with the Rolex Oyster, the first ever waterproof wristwatch. Hans knew it was a big deal, but he waited for the right moment to show it off. In 1927, a woman named Mercedes Glixa said she could swim across the English Channel, a 20-mile-long stretch of water between England and France. People didn't believe her, so she tried again in front of a big crowd. Hans saw the opportunity and asked her to wear a Rolex Oyster around her neck. She swam for over 10 hours in frozen waters and made about 16 miles across the channel. She didn't finish, but the watch was still working perfectly. People went wild for the watch, and Hans put an ad in the London Daily Mail newspaper about it. That's when Rolex became famous all over the world. So Hans had another smart idea. He told Rolex dealers to display the waterproof Oyster watches in fish tanks with real fish swimming around them, which inevitably caught the attention of people passing by. Just 5 years later, they achieved another milestone in Rolex history, when engineers created the perpetual rotor, which automatically won the watch, something that had been previously considered impossible. Hans also made it his mission to ensure that the most popular people in the world wore a Rolex, especially those who did daring things, like the first flight to Everest, when the people on that trip wore Rolex Oyster watch, and when Malcolm Campbell set a land speed record of 300 miles per hour in Utah in 1935, he was wearing a Rolex too. So it was really this combined strategy of great marketing mixed with innovations and impressive high quality that allowed Rolex to keep expanding and become more and more popular. On their 40th anniversary, they released the Datejust model, which was the first automatic watch with a date on its dial. But then World War II happened and it was tough for Rolex. It became difficult and expensive to export products outside of Switzerland to other big markets in Europe. And a tragedy followed when Hans' wife Florence passed away in 1944. Hans had been through a lot in his life, and now he was 63, without kids, and feeling like he needed to plan for the future of his company. Hans was a master of watches, but not a master of time. So in 1946, he created the Hans Wulfsdorf Foundation and gave 100% of his ownership of Rolex to the foundation. This way, he made sure that Rolex would always be in good hands even after he was gone. Today, this foundation still has full ownership and control of Rolex. And since it's essentially a charity and not a company, they don't pay taxes on any profits. Instead, a good portion of the money goes towards charitable causes like education grants and training watchmakers. But not all the money goes to charity. Since Rolex is owned by the trust, there are no shareholders and no requirements to disclose its financial activities. This structure allows Rolex to keep its secrets safe. Hans died in 1960. After that, Rolex started to approach itself as the luxury brand it is today. The company focused its marketing on being an exclusive watch collection for people of high society. which worked. In the 1970s, something important happened in the world of watches. There was a big change called the quartz revolution. It brought battery-powered watches that were super accurate and easy to make. These watches were way cheaper to produce, making a lot of traditional watch companies go out of business. But guess what? Rolex was just fine. So why is Rolex so special? Why do they charge so much for their watches? Even the cheapest Rolex costs you about $10,000. Why do people spend so much when there are cheaper options and we all have smartphones to check the time? First, let's take the obvious. Rolex is not just a watch, it's a symbol of wealth and success. And this level of status is clearly thanks to Rolex's high visibility marketing strategy, where it associates itself with success. They show this by doing a lot of advertising with famous events like Wimbledon and Formula One. They also sponsor prestigious events like horse races and golf tournaments that wealthy people watch or attend. Rolex isn't the most expensive watch, and the super rich or big watch fans might even prefer other brands. The difference is those other brands don't spend as much on advertising, which is why most people outside of a watch community don't even know about them. Rolex wants to be special and important. To keep this image of prestige and exclusivity, Rolex only sells its watches through authorized dealers, and there are no special offers or sales. In fact, Rolex even buys back old stock from stores to ensure they won't sell any watch at a discount to not hurt the brand image of a product difficult to obtain. Rolex makes fewer watches than people want to buy, and they do it on purpose to make people want them even more. Limiting the supply to keep the demand high allows them to keep the high price tag, as the waiting time can range from 1 to 5 years on average. A Daytona model can make you wait in line for up to 10 years. So if you think you can walk to a Rolex store and come out with a brand new watch, you are heavily mistaken, my friend. The good news is, even though the Rolex price tag is high, it doesn't mean it's not worth it. Thanks to Rolex's rich heritage and reputation, their watches usually keep their value or even become more valuable over time, allowing some people to see them as a good investment. The fact is that Rolex is the most famous watch brand in the world. From an orphan boy who started from nothing, Hans Wilsdorf worked hard and smart, changing the watch industry to what it is today. His passion for design and innovation can teach some valuable business lessons for all of us. Now I'm curious to know, do you think Rolex is worth its price? Drop your answer in the comments below. As always, keep up the good fight and be wealthy.